Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, a little bit back to work here today on the Jimmy DeRest bandsaw, and wanted to do a little follow-up video today and also do a couple prep things getting ready for its next step in the journey, as well as share some other stuff about this purchase and where it came from, and the fact that there's actually more that we picked up than just this saw. And I didn't have that in the shop the other day to show you. I do today. So first off, let me thank everybody out there for all of the comments, the emails, everything else around this saw. It really generated a lot of interest, and I apologize. Honestly, I got inundated with messages and had a lot going on, and I did not get a chance to respond to each and every one of you personally, particularly the guys that were sending pictures of the decals, because I got lots of them. And I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna have to take care of it in the video. So again, apologies. It's nothing personal, guys. It's just a matter of time management. And I don't have enough hours in the day to do all of this. We'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do, you know, I've had a chance now to do a little bit of research, I guess you could say, on the saw, on the company, so on, that I didn't really have all of those details back in front of me before. And honestly, some of this information even came from you guys. A lot of it came off of my own website that I hadn't had a chance to really study really hard before I did the first video. So a little bit of history about the J.A. Fay Company. And I think I mentioned a little bit of this in the last video, but I want to go a little bit more in depth here. So J.A. Fay is one of the oldest manufacturers of woodworking machinery in the U.S. Go way back into the early 1800s. I don't have the date here on the top of my head when they were founded, but it is a very old company. And they were based in Cincinnati, Ohio, and their largest competitor at the time was the Egan Company, which was also based in Cincinnati, Ohio. These two companies literally went head to head. They were fighting for business. They were fighting over patents. I mean, there was a lot of literally fighting between these two companies. Well, through a whole slew of events that happened, in 1893, basically, both companies merged together and became the J.A. Fay and Egan Company. So basically, the J.A. Fay Company and the Egan Company merged together, became J.A. Fay and Egan Company. But even though the merger happened in 1893, it really wasn't a very fast merger from the standpoint of how things really went down. So the two companies, they continued to operate as separate entities to the point that they were even still somewhat competing with one another for probably another decade after the merger took place. Now, in name, they became the J.A. Fay and Egan Company, but both of those companies still had their separate catalogs, their separate lines of machinery that they were making, and in many cases, they were still being badged and had the name of the legacy company on them, and very often they may have had something else to indicate the new name, J.A. Fay and Egan. So, you know, I said that this bandsaw was a J.A. Fay bandsaw, and that is definitely where its lineage is from. I have got a catalog that shows this bandsaw, J.A. Fay, early or late 1800s, really before the merger took place. So we know that this came from that side, and to back that up, I'm going to show you on another bandsaw here in just a few minutes where it actually says J.A. Fay on there. However, I feel pretty strongly now that I've done a little bit more research, that this saw was probably made after the merger took place. And the decal that was up here that we were talking about likely said J.A. Fay and Egan Company. This particular saw does not say anywhere on it strictly J.A. Fay. I've got another example that does, and I'm going to show you that here in just a few minutes. But I feel like that this saw probably was in the J.A. Fay and Egan era, but after the merger took place. So anyway, just a little bit there. Also, we don't know the history of this machine 100%, but we feel fairly certain that this came off of Rice Yard, which is a railroad yard in Waycross, Georgia. From, again, my research, Rice Yard kind of got started in 1897. So again, that is after the merger took place. Now, there's no way for me to say 100% for certain that this saw came from Rice Yard. There's no way for me to say for certain that this saw was purchased by Rice Yard in 1897. You know, or you know, even if it was purchased by Rice Yard, they could have purchased a used machine and brought it in. It may not have been brought in as a new machine. We'll never know. But we have to make some assumptions, and more than likely, this saw was bought brand new, and if it was on the Rice Yard and it was bought at that time, it would have been bought in 1897 or later. Again, putting it in that J.A. Fay and Egan time frame. Now, the oldest catalog that I have seen with this in here is from about the time the merger took place, early 1890s. I have not found any catalog later showing it from either J.A. Fay, the Egan Company, or the new combined company. And once J.A. Fay and Egan started putting out catalogs in the early 1900s, this saw was no longer listed in there. Does that mean that it was not still available, that they may not have had parts, or if someone special ordered that they couldn't have made one? No, it doesn't, but again, it kind of helps put a date on it. I believe that this saw would be from the very late 1800s, probably 1897 to 1900, maybe even 1901, 1902, but still early on. So going back to the decals, I'm going to show you guys some of the ones that you found out there, and I'm going to show you which one I think it is based on looking at what's on here, plus a little bit of history that we just talked about. So most everybody that sent in decals sent me some variation of one of these two right here, and you know, this is a very good guess. The shape of the decal matches almost identically to what's on the machine, but I don't think that it's actually either one of these. I'm going to explain that in a minute. First off, these decals, this artwork actually came off of my website at vintagemachinery.org, and there's over in our wiki section, there is a section in there where a lot of people have over time done artwork and recreated graphics for decals and stuff like that for doing restoration work, and they've been kind enough to upload them there for other people to use. And both of these examples actually came off of my site. I had not even looked on there when we shot the first video. In fact, when we shot the first video, I had noticed the old decal there, but I really hadn't looked at it real close, and we talked about it in the video. It wasn't until after I shot the video that I even went to look on my own website to see what was there. Some of you guys actually sent other pictures, actual decal pictures, but it was one of these two. The reason I don't think that these were the decals on there, even though the shape matches perfectly, is this part right here. It says the lightning line, the lightning line. So the lightning line, after J.A. Fay and Egan, yes, when the company came together, they eventually started using this as a marketing term to describe their line of machinery, the lightning line, and that was used really, I guess, all the way up to the more or less the end of their existence. But they didn't really start using this term. I think the earliest, oh goodness, I wish I need to have written this down, but it was in the 19-teens before they actually started using this terminology. And I think that is later than when these saws were built. And part of the reason I say that is there's no catalogs, at least that I've seen, of the J.A. Fay and Egan lightning line that shows anything close to this bandsaw in there. Again, could it have been still being made years and years later? I mean, that's always a possibility, but I think it's unlikely. A more likely example of what the decal was this one right here. And if you look, the shape Everything else is pretty much identical. The graphics are a little bit different. There's a couple of versions of this this green decal. There's another one there that matches this a little bit better, but these were, again, this is artwork that people have kind of put together looking at old decals. So they're probably, none of these are exactly right, but they're pretty darn close. But I think that this was the decal that we're seeing on there. The green, you really can't see at all. All you really kind of see is the gold, which more than likely, when this decal was made, it had kind of a gold background on it, and the other colors were printed on top of that. And all that is remaining on my saw is kind of the gold part that was in the background. But I think this is the decal that was on there, and we'll never know for sure. There's not enough evidence left over there to be able to say for sure which decal it was, but probably one of these, and I think this is what we're going to go for as far as a reproduction decal. I think it really more fits the era that this saw is likely from. So kind of continuing on with my story about these bandsaws, and notice I said bandsaws. There's actually two of them. I know you guys have only seen one of them so far because I haven't shown the other one. They were, well, I'm not even sure if it was in my original Facebook post that I made. But like I said, this saw here is the one that we're restoring. It just has the regular tilting table on it. But whenever we picked it up, it was, for the most part, complete. Yeah, missing a few minor parts, but it was fairly complete. Had both the wheels. It was in fairly decent shape. The wheels would still turn, etc., etc. Still had the guides and everything on there. Probably could have put a bandsaw blade on there and cut. Probably wouldn't have been ideal, but I mean, this machine was pretty much in good shape. In the same shop, though, that we got these out of, there was a second bandsaw that was more or less the same, a little bit different, from the same era. And when I shot the first video, I didn't have that one here at my shop. And we brought them home. We brought them on two different trailers. And I actually had the second bandsaw was out at the farm in storage up underneath the building. I have since moved it here to my shop, and I'm going to show you guys that second saw right now. Bandsaw number 2. So yes, there were 2 of these in the shop, but as you can probably tell by looking at this one just real quickly, there's some issues. This is pretty much exactly like we found it. We haven't removed anything off of it at all. And it's pretty obvious here, we're missing the wheels. Top and bottom wheel, gone. MIA, not to be found. We looked all around the shop over there. They weren't there. Also missing the whole bearing cap assembly down here on the bottom. It's missing. Again, don't know what happened to it. The auxiliary table, missing. But for the most part, things are here. And I don't know what we're going to do with this one. It's really Jimmy's saw to determine that. I could see the possibility of making new wheels for this. I mean, they're wooden rim wheels. The original ones were. Steam bent a couple pieces around some things. I could see possibly making some wheels for this. So I don't know. We'll see. We could probably cast the missing parts, etc. So who knows? Maybe this will turn back into another machine. We'll just have to figure that as we go. The other big thing that's different about this saw is that it's a different model saw. Now, the frame is identical, and really the saw is identical except for the table here. And you notice we got this whole thing going on down here. If you look in the catalog, and I'll show a picture here in just a minute, or I'll put one in here, this was actually a band resaw is what it was called. And it was for resawing lumber. So a sawmill may kick out, you know, a wide beam, and then you would resaw it into whatever thicknesses you want. So it had some upright rollers that your log would roll through that you could adjust by turning the cranks down here on the bottom, and you had a big wide blade. It was almost like a mini sawmill. I mean, it wasn't for sawing logs, but it was for resawing squared up timbers or some other lumber into thinner pieces. So was a fairly common type of machine. Still is a fairly common type of machine, but this one here is pretty old, obviously. So, you know, I've seen these in the catalogs. I've never actually seen one from this era that was, you know, complete or even had a table like this. This could be a lone survivor of this type of a machine, even though it's not complete. You know, obviously I think getting the whole resaw mechanism going again is probably a long shot without really having the parts, original parts to copy and remake. All we have is a picture. It'd be difficult, probably not impossible, but it'd be difficult unless you could find someone that has the resaw part of this. So a couple other things about this saw that I want to point out. So let's do that real quick. So first off, back here on the back side of the big C frame on here, you can see where it had the company name in here. J.A. Fay and Company. And then it's real hard to make out, but this is a CIN period Ohio, O for Ohio, and then USA. Now, I think what happened here is that they came in here and this was ground off, or at least partially ground off, which indicates that this was probably post-merger. It had the original casting, but after the merger, they probably just came in here and took a grinder, ground that off, and put the Fay and Egan sticker or something like that, although I don't see the remains of a sticker on this one. Very well could have been one on here at one time though. But you can see that this was originally a J.A. Fay machine. Again, because it has been ground down, it probably is post-merger, which kind of fits our timeline. I'll show you some other things about it. So down here at the base, you can actually see where it had some patent information that was cast into the base. Now this was not ground off. I've tried to highlight it a little bit where you can make it out. It's kind of difficult, but look at the dates on here. I mean, the earliest one is, was that August 25th, maybe 1863. That's an old patent. And it says reissued. So what reissued means on that one is that patent expired, but they were able to get it reissued later on, and it basically extended the life of that patent. You know, the other patent dates on here, we got 1868, 1871, 1872, and 1874. Generally speaking, a patent in this time frame was good for about 20 years. And generally speaking, manufacturers, after 20 years, they wouldn't put the patent on it anymore. They would remove it. Now, in the case of that one that was reissued, that means that it was extended, so I don't know when that patent actually expired. So, you know, that could say that this saw, you know, at least the patterns had all that stuff in there. Maybe they just didn't grind them off. It's really, you can't use these dates to really date a machine, other than to say that it would have been made after the last patent date. Obviously, it wouldn't have been made before that, so it had been made after 1874. Again, my guess is this saw was made in the 1890s, would be my bet. But anyway, that's just interesting to see those old patent dates on there. And if you're interested in those patents, if you look up J.A. Fay on the VintageMachinery.org website, we have all the patent information. We have tons and tons of patent information. You can go in there and find the patents that were issued to these companies. All of those patents are in there, and if you really want to see what they were for, you can go look at them and see what they were for. And another interesting thing on this one is it has the serial number tag, which is this tag right here. Now, on the other saw, you can see where there was a serial number tag that has been removed, and it's basically the exact same as this one. Couple things on serial numbers on Fay, J.A. Fay, and J.A. Fay and Egan machines. Number one, this style tag, this is actually a lead tag. They cast these, and I'm pretty sure that's lead that they're made out of. I actually got one off of a machine that I acquired sometime a long time ago, and you can tell it's made out of lead. It's real soft. But they would cast these and put them on the machines. J.A. Fay started using this style serial number tag on a lot of their real early machines. And after the merger, when you had the J.A. Fay and Egan machines, they continued using this style of serial number tag pretty late into the whole run of things. So really can't go off of at least the style of the tag to say whether it was J.A. Fay or J.A. Fay and Egan, because they used them during both times. Now, to my knowledge, I have never seen any kind of index that shows serial numbers for J.A. Fay or J.A. Fay and Egan that kind of you can date a machine by. A lot of companies, that information still exists. If it still exists for these companies, again, I've never seen it. I've looked for it. I can't find it. I'm sure somewhere at some time they probably had some records, but as far as I know, they've been lost. We don't know that anymore. It'd be really, really nice if you know, you could go look that number up and get at least a date as to when it was built, if not even more information. For a lot of serial numbers, you know, companies still have records. You can tell them who it was sold for, when it was sold. They have records of when parts were ordered and who ordered the parts and so on. You can really very often track down the history of a machine through its serial number, but for J.A. Fay and J.A. Fay and Egan, not really an option. So anyway, I thought I'd show the serial number tag. I actually saw some comments from folks saying you can see the serial number tag. That's what it looks like. So the second saw frame is, of course, owned by Jimmy DiResta. He bought it with the other one. I went ahead and picked them up. I've got them both here. I don't know that I'm going to need to rob any parts off of this. I think we pretty much have all the parts that are on this one. And again, I think that with some work, this saw could be at least turned back into a traditional bandsaw. I think bringing it back to a resaw would probably be pressing your luck. But I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. Ultimately, it's going to go to Jimmy unless for some reason we decide to restore it and it stays here. But it would require a lot of work, particularly having to make those wheels. But yeah, who knows? It could be done. If somebody wanted it done bad enough, it can be done. And ultimately, though, this is going to go to Jimmy. Who knows? He may have other plans for it. He may turn it into something else cool. Don't know. But anyway, I thought I'd share it and show it to you because it is part of the whole puzzle here with these machines. So back to this saw that we're going to be restoring for Jimmy. This is pretty much the original saw like we had. Part of me wants to take the main casting off of that second saw because it's got all those patent dates. It's got the J.A. Fay name in there. The castings are virtually identical. We could probably swap parts and it would probably have a little bit cooler history or look to it. But at the same time, I really feel like it's important to keep this original saw together because it's been together from the very beginning. And to take parts off of one and not put it on the other when there's not a need to at this stage in the game, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to go ahead and do this. So in my last video, I had kind of talked about my plans going forward with this one, which was to take it out with the pressure washer, put some paint stripper on it, try to get it cleaned off, and then coming in with the wire wheel and cleaning it up. I've actually, I think I'm going to go a little bit different route. It's just going to be a time saver for me. There's a business about 30 miles south of me, not very far away, that does commercial sandblasting, and I can take this down there and for fairly reasonable price, they will sandblast it and go ahead and prime it for me and have it pretty much ready to go, which will save me all the trouble of having to get in here with a wire wheel and strip all this paint off. And it's going to be a lot faster, a lot easier. It's going to cost me a little bit more money out of pocket, but in the long run, it's probably going to save me money when you look at the value of my time. And actually, I'll probably use Brock to do most of this work, and what I would pay him to do it, I can probably get it done cheaper sandblasting. So plan is we're going to load this thing up, take it over to Moultrie, Georgia, and let them do that. Problem is that The place that does the sandblasting is located right out at Spence Field, which is an old Army Air Corps base. It was an Air Force base back up to the 1960s. It's now a big just place where they have events. And this week is the Sunbelt Agricultural Exposition, which is one of the largest farm shows in the country. Not the largest, but one of the largest. And it's going on this week, and it's a zoo over there. I'm not going to load this thing up on a trailer and go deal with all that traffic. So we're going to wait till next week after that all kind of settles down, take it over there to them. But there are some things I want to do to get it ready to go. Biggest thing, and what I think we're going to do right now, is we're going to go ahead and melt the babbitt out of this. I really don't want that babbitt in there when they sandblast it, because you'll get the sand impregnated in the babbitt. It's just not good. And two, we'll want to kind of sandblast that area that will get the babbitt poured back into it. And I have decided, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and put new babbitt in this thing while we're doing it. There's no reason not to. So that will be part of our restoration project. So let's do something. Instead of talking, let's melt some babbitt out. So to get the babbitt out, what I have done is I've come in here and I have blocked this whole bandsaw up where I've got a tilt to it. It's actually leaning toward me. I've got about a 3-inch extra height in the back than I do in the front. And I'm using my gantry crane here to support the saw. So the saw was actually supported by these straps. It is sitting down there too, but it is still supported up here. And that just helps me sure this thing isn't going to tip over on me. I'd have been real nervous to have done this if I didn't have the gantry crane there to support it. So I'm confident everything's good there. And down here below, we've got a pouring ladle. This is what I would usually melt my babbitt in. We're just going to use that to catch it with, and we should be able to heat that up, and the gravity should cause the babbitt to pour out and drip down into that pan. That's the game plan. Let's get the torch out and see how it goes. There may be more babbitt than that ladle will hold. If so, we'll let it cool. We'll dump that one out and refill it. So let's see if we can melt it out. So before we start melting, I want to show this here. There's an area inside this babbitt from about here to here where it almost looks like it's been melted or galled out or something. So I'm kind of glad I'm replacing these bearings. That back bearing, that looks pretty good. This one here, something's definitely going on with it. I did try to clean them up a little bit and get most of that grease out before we melt it. So let's fire up. I got a rosebud, and we'll get some heat going here. All that grease and stuff are going to try to burn out. And we'll start melting babbitt. Babbitt melts at a fairly low temperature, depending on the grade of babbitt you got. Usually 700-800 degrees is about all it takes to melt it out. And it seems to be working pretty good. All right, we got the bottom half of that bearing melted out. You can see my ladle is just about full. I'm going to let that harden up, and we'll dump that out, and then we'll do the back half. All right, so we got half of it melted out. I came in here after it cooled down a little bit, dumped my babbitt, took a wire brush and just kind of cleaned some of that trash out of the bottom. I got a little bit left over here in these plugs on the side. I'll get that out. They basically drill some holes in here, and that kind of keys things in place, and that's all that's about. But we'll get those cleaned out and then get up here and get this top half. Same drill. All right, I think we got it. We'll let that babbitt cool off and dump it up, and I think we'll have the babbitt completely poured out or melted out. Well, not a whole lot of work done to the saw in this episode. More just a little bit about the history and about the second bandsaw we picked up and just telling you more about the story. But next up, like we said, we'll get this delivered over there, get it sandblasted. And once I get this back, we can really kind of start working on recreating the saw. And my plan is we're going to take the main frame over there and probably some of the larger pieces to be sandblasted. Most of the smaller pieces that we took off that are mostly sitting on this table back here, that's all stuff that I can actually do in my blasting cabinet. And I'll probably just do that here. And part of the reason why I want to do some of this stuff myself is there are machine surfaces on a lot of this that are slideways and so forth. And I don't want to just sandblast everything. Some stuff doesn't need to be sandblasted. And on this main frame, there's not a whole lot they can mess up. On some of that other stuff, yes, there's some things they can mess up. We'll still sandblast, but we'll do so very carefully and protect surfaces that need to be protected and so on. So that's kind of my idea and game plan going forward. And like I said, once we get this back from sandblasting, we can really start this project in earnest. So there you go. That's going to be a wrap. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up, comments are appreciated. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when new videos are posted. And with that, we'll catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching.